The first time I noticed it, I was 23 and exhausted, standing in my mother's kitchen at 2 a.m. on December 26th, scrubbing gravy stains from serving platters, while my cousins snored peacefully in the guest rooms upstairs. The house was silent, except for the dishwasher's hum and my own ragged breathing. Everyone else had drifted away after dinner, bellies full and spirits merry, leaving behind a battlefield of dirty dishes, sticky countertops, and the lingering smell of turkey grease. I told myself it was normal. I was the youngest adult, unmarried, childless. Of course I'd help with cleanup. Family is family, right? But as years passed, helping became doing everything. The expectations grew like weeds, silent but suffocating. First, I was volunteered to bring dessert, then appetizers. Then Mom casually mentioned that since I was so good at cooking, maybe I could handle the turkey too. Before I knew it, I was responsible for planning the entire menu, shopping for groceries, arriving 3 days early to prep, cooking a feast for 25 people, serving it with a smile, and staying until the last fork was clean. My siblings? They brought wine and their appetites. Sarah's just so naturally gifted in the kitchen, Mom would beam to relatives, as if my gift was divine rather than learned through years of necessity when she worked double shifts and Dad traveled for business. She loves doing this for us. Did I love it? I couldn't remember anymore. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving of my 30th year. I'd been dating Marcus for 8 months, a kind, patient man who'd watched me stress cook my way through our relationship's first holiday season. He'd offered to help multiple times, but family tradition dictated that only real family members could handle the cooking. Boyfriends could sit in the living room with the men and watch football. I was juggling 3 timers, a broken oven door, and my brother Kyle's new dietary restrictions. Apparently, he was gluten-sensitive now, discovered, conveniently the day before, when my sister Emma waltzed into the kitchen. "Sarah, the gravy tastes a bit bland," she announced, not offering to help fix it, just standing there with her perfectly manicured nails wrapped around a wine glass. "Also, do we have anything dairy-free? Jessica's bringing her new boyfriend, and he's lactose intolerant." Jessica was Emma's 19-year-old daughter, who'd given me exactly 0 advance notice about this dietary requirement. "Emma," I said carefully, my voice tight with exhaustion, "I've been cooking for 6 hours straight. Maybe you could—" "Oh, I would help, but you know I'm useless in the kitchen." She laughed as if her incompetence was charming rather than convenient. "Besides, you're so much better at this." It would just be in the way. That's when I snapped. Not outwardly, years of people-pleasing had trained that instinct out of me. But something cold and hard crystallized in my chest. I watched Emma saunter back to the living room, where my other siblings and cousins were laughing at something on TV. None of them had set foot in the kitchen except to grab beers from the fridge. I served dinner with my usual smile, accepted compliments with gracious nods, and cleaned everything alone while everyone else retreated to digest their food comas. Marcus stayed to help, bless him, but I could see the bewilderment in his eyes as he watched my family's casual dismissal of my efforts. "This isn't normal, Sarah," he said gently, as we loaded the dishwasher for the 3rd time that day. "They treat you like hired help." "They don't mean to," I replied automatically, but the words felt hollow. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom while Marcus slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and did something I hadn't done in years. I imagined Christmas without me. What would they do? Who would cook the turkey, time the sides, orchestrate the complicated dance of getting everything ready simultaneously? The thought should have filled me with guilt, but instead, I felt something lighter, something that might have been relief. The idea took root slowly, quietly, like a secret rebellion growing in the dark corners of my mind. December rolled around with its usual demands. Mom called with the guest list, 32 people this year, dietary restrictions, Kyle was now also keto, and cousin Michael had developed a shellfish allergy, and her expectation that I'd arrive December 22nd to start prep work. I was thinking we could try that cranberry orange sauce you made 2 years ago, she said cheerfully. Everyone raved about it. Oh, and Emma suggested we add a cheese course this year, something fancy. You know how to pick good cheese, don't you? I made non-committal sounds while she planned my servitude, then hung up and opened my laptop. Flights to Costa Rica were surprisingly affordable in December. Marcus found me researching beachfront hotels at 1 a.m. Running away? He asked, settling beside me on the couch. Considering options, I corrected. He scrolled through my browser tabs. Flights, hotels, a detailed itinerary for a week-long vacation that coincidentally overlapped with Christmas. His expression was unreadable. What about your family? What about them? Sarah. His voice was gentle but serious. You can't just disappear without telling them. Can't I? But he was right, partially. I couldn't just vanish. That would be cruel, and despite everything, I wasn't cruel. But I also couldn't face another year of being taken for granted, another Christmas morning spent in a kitchen instead of with people I loved, another December 26th cleaning up everyone else's mess while they slept off their food comas. I needed to make a statement. I needed them to understand what they were asking of me, what they'd been asking of me for years. So I crafted my plan carefully. On December 15th, I called Mom. I need to let you know, I said, my voice, steady despite my racing heart, I won't be able to do Christmas this year. Silence. Then, what do you mean you can't do Christmas? I mean I won't be there. Marcus and I are taking a vacation. A vacation? Her voice climbed an octave. During Christmas? Yes. But Sarah, honey, we need you. Who's going to cook? There it was. Not we'll miss you or, but it's Christmas. Just, who's going to cook? I'm sure you'll figure something out, I said. Emma's a grown woman. Kyle owns 3 restaurants. Dad grilled for 40 years before he decided it was too much work. You all managed before I became your personal chef. Personal chef? Honey, you're not our personal chef. You're family. Family helps family. When was the last time anyone helped me, Mom? Another silence. Longer this time. We appreciate everything you do. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like appreciation when I'm the only one working while everyone else relaxes. It feels like being taken advantage of. Sarah Louise Morrison, that's not fair. We never asked you to. You ask me every year, and when I try to say no or suggest sharing responsibilities, suddenly I'm being selfish or difficult. My mother's voice turned sharp. So you're just going to abandon your family during the holidays? Leave us scrambling? I'm taking a vacation with my boyfriend. Hardly abandonment. What am I supposed to tell everyone? Tell them the truth. Tell them their personal chef quit. I hung up before she could respond. The next call came an hour later. Emma. Sarah, Mom says you're bailing on Christmas? That's pretty selfish, don't you think? Is it? Or is expecting me to cook for 30-plus people every year without help pretty selfish? Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. We all help. When? When do you help, Emma? I always offer. You offer to taste test. That's not helping. That's quality control. Look, if you're having some kind of breakdown, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries? Jesus, Sarah, when did you become so self-centered? Self-centered, for not wanting to sacrifice my entire holiday for their comfort. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so painful. Kyle called next, then Dad, then various cousins who'd somehow been recruited to the Make Sarah Feel Guilty campaign. Each conversation followed the same pattern: disbelief, anger, bargaining, more anger. Not one person asked why I was upset. Not one person acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, the current arrangement wasn't fair. The final call came from my grandmother, the family matriarch, whose disappointment could wither flowers. "Sarah, sweetheart," she said in her deceptively sweet voice, "I hear you're having some kind of tantrum about Christmas." "It's not a tantrum, Grandma. I'm just not going to be the family servant anymore." "Servant? Honey, that's a terrible thing to say about people who love you. People who love me would care about my feelings." "Your feelings?" Her voice hardened. "What about our feelings? What about tradition? What about family loyalty? What about my loyalty to myself?" She hung up on me. The next few days were surprisingly peaceful. No frantic calls about menu planning, no requests to just pick up a few things at the grocery store, no lengthy discussions about oven timing and seating arrangements. Instead, Marcus and I finalized our vacation plans. Costa Rica, a week at a beachfront resort, ziplining and snorkeling, and doing absolutely nothing that resembled food service. But as December 22nd approached, the day I would have normally arrived at my parents' house, arms full of groceries and head full of recipes, the calls resumed. This time they were desperate. "Sarah, please," Mom begged. "I went to the grocery store. Do you know how much a turkey costs? And I have no idea how to time everything. The stuffing alone has 12 ingredients. Emma could help you. Emma burned water last week, and Kyle's in Cabo until the 24th. Dad? You know your father can barely make coffee." I did know that. I also knew it was a choice, not an inability. Dad could rebuild car engines and wire electrical systems, but somehow the complexities of a timer and a meat thermometer were beyond his capabilities. "Mom, you raised 4 children. You can cook a turkey." "Not for 32 people. Sarah, please, I'm begging you. Just this once more, and next year we'll figure out a different system." Next year, always next year. Next year they'd help, next year they'd share responsibilities, next year it would be different. But next year never came. "I'm sorry, Mom. Marcus and I leave for Costa Rica tomorrow morning." The sob that followed nearly broke my resolve. But I'd learned something important in recent weeks. Guilt wasn't the same as responsibility. Their poor planning wasn't my emergency. Christmas Eve found me on a beach in Guanacaste Province, watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean in shades of gold and crimson. Marcus dozed in the chair beside me, a paperback novel open on his chest, his skin already gaining color from our day of doing absolutely nothing productive. My phone buzzed constantly. Family group chat messages, individual texts, voicemails ranging from pleading to furious. I'd stopped reading them after the first dozen. Instead, I ordered another piña colada and tried to remember the last time I'd been this relaxed during the holidays. I couldn't. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, apparently not as asleep as he'd seemed. I considered the question seriously. Regrets about missing the chaos, the stress, the thankless hours of labor? About disappointing people who'd never seemed particularly concerned about disappointing me? "Just one," I said finally. He raised an eyebrow. "I should have done this years ago." Christmas morning in Costa Rica was nothing like Christmas morning at home. No frantic wake-up call at 5 a.m. to start the turkey. No complicated schedule of side dishes timed to finish simultaneously. No parade of relatives expecting to be fed and entertained. Instead, Marcus and I slept until we naturally woke up, made love slowly and quietly, then wandered down to the resort restaurant for fresh fruit and coffee. We exchanged small gifts: a book I'd mentioned wanting, earrings he'd secretly bought during our shopping trip in San Jose. It was peaceful, it was intimate, it was exactly what Christmas should be. My phone told a different story. The family group chat had devolved into chaos. Screenshots showed a disaster that would have been comedy gold if it weren't so predictably tragic. Dad had attempted the turkey. The photos showed something that resembled a leather handbag more than poultry. Emma had volunteered for sides and somehow managed to both undercook the potatoes and burn the green beans. Kyle, who'd returned from Cabo hungover and useless, had picked up pre-made dishes from whatever grocery stores were open on Christmas, overpriced, underseasoned, and insufficient for 32 people. The cranberry sauce was canned. The stuffing was from a box. Half the relatives had stopped at McDonald's on the way over because they'd heard rumors about the menu situation. But it was Grandma's message that really drove the point home. This is what happens when people are selfish. Christmas is ruined because Sarah decided her vacation was more important than family. I read it twice, then handed the phone to Marcus. "Wow," he said after scrolling through the messages. Not one apology, not one person saying, maybe we should have helped more. Just blame. Are you surprised? Honestly? Number. But I hoped they might have some self-awareness. I had hoped that too. Somewhere in my heart, I'd harbored a fantasy that my absence would trigger some great awakening, that they'd suddenly realize how much they'd been asking of me and emerge from Christmas Day with newfound appreciation and a commitment to change. Instead, I was the villain for refusing to enable their learned helplessness. "Do you want to go home early?" Marcus asked gently. God, no. We spent the rest of Christmas Day snorkeling in crystal clear water, identifying tropical fish, and floating weightlessly in the warm Pacific. That evening, we had dinner at a beachfront restaurant. Fresh-caught mahi-mahi, plantains, rice, and beans. I didn't have to cook myself. It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. The real reckoning came when we returned home. I'd expected anger, guilt trips, maybe the silent treatment. What I found instead was something more surprising: panic. "Sarah!" Mom practically tackled me at the airport. "Thank God you're back. We need to talk about New Year's." New Year's? The party! We always have the New Year's party. I stared at her. We have never had a New Year's party. Well, we're starting this year. Emma thought it would be fun, and since everyone's already planning to come over anyway. Translation, they'd committed to hosting another large family gathering and realized, perhaps for the first time, that these events didn't happen by magic. "Mom, I just got back from vacation." "I know, honey, but this would be so much smaller than Christmas. Maybe just appetizers? You make those wonderful spinach things." And there it was. They'd learned nothing. No. The word came out flat and final. No. No, I'm not cooking for New Year's. I'm not planning a menu, shopping for groceries, or cleaning up afterward. If you want a party, you're welcome to have one, but you'll need to figure out the food situation yourselves. Mom's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, hurt, anger, then something that might have been panic. "But Sarah, we don't know how to." "Then maybe it's time you learned." The next few weeks were a masterclass in manipulation. Family members I rarely heard from suddenly wanted to have lunch, during which they'd casually bring up how hurt Mom was, how disappointed Grandma remained, how my rebellion was tearing the family apart. Emma cornered me at the grocery store. "Look, I get it," she said, her tone suggesting she absolutely did not get it. "You wanted to make a point. Point made. But this has gone on long enough. You're punishing everyone for, what? Having to cook dinner?" "Having to cook dinner for 32 people with zero help for 7 years running," I corrected. "It was never 32 people. Last Christmas it was, well, maybe a few times, but..." Emma, name one thing you contributed to Christmas dinner last year besides criticism and appetite. She opened and closed her mouth several times, then settled on. I brought wine. You brought 1 bottle of wine. For 32 people. It was expensive wine. This was the level of self-awareness I was dealing with. Kyle tried a different approach, appealing to my professional pride. "You're just so good at it," he said over coffee. "It's like asking Picasso not to paint." "This is your gift." "My gift is also my career," I pointed out. "I'm a chef, Kyle. I cook for a living. The last thing I want to do on my vacation is cook for free. But it's family. That should make it easier to ask for help, not harder to say no." He frowned, clearly puzzled by this logic. Dad took the direct approach. "Your mother is very upset," he announced during one of his rare phone calls. "She'll get over it. Sarah, you're being unreasonable." "We're not asking for much." "Dad, be honest. When was the last time you cooked a meal?" "I grill burgers sometimes." "When was the last time you planned a menu for more than 30 people, shopped for all the ingredients, cooked everything simultaneously, served it, and cleaned up afterward?" Silence. "That's what I thought." But the real test came in March, when Mom called about Easter. "I was thinking maybe just a small gathering this year," she said carefully. "Maybe 10 people. Very casual. I could pick up a honey-baked ham." She was learning slowly, painfully, but learning. "That sounds nice," I said. "So you'll come?" "I'll come as a guest. I'll bring a side dish, 1 side dish, and I'll help clean up after we eat. But I'm not cooking the meal." "Oh!" The disappointment in her voice was palpable. "Well, I suppose I could figure out the sides. Emma could bring something too, and Kyle, and Dad could grill vegetables instead of just meat for once." "I guess. I mean, if you think they would." "Mom, they're adults. They can contribute to family gatherings." Easter was a revelation. Not because the food was particularly good. Mom's ham was dry, Emma's potato salad was under-seasoned, and Dad's grilled asparagus was slightly charred, but because for the first time in years, I sat at the table during dinner instead of jumping up to refill serving dishes or check on something in the oven. I had conversations. I laughed at Kyle's stupid jokes. I played with my cousin's toddler instead of worrying about keeping food warm. It was imperfect and chaotic, and nothing like the Pinterest-worthy spreads I used to orchestrate. It was also the most relaxed I'd ever been at a family gathering. "This is nice," Marcus murmured, squeezing my hand under the table as we listened to Grandma tell stories about Easter during the Depression. It was nice, and it was sustainable in a way my previous role as family food service had never been. After dinner, something unprecedented happened. People helped clean up without being asked. Kyle cleared plates, Emma loaded the dishwasher, Dad packaged leftovers. It wasn't seamless or particularly efficient, but it was collaborative. "See?" Mom said as she dried the serving platter I'd washed. "This worked out fine." "It did," I agreed. "Maybe we could do something similar for Mother's Day." I looked at her carefully. "What did you have in mind?" "Well, I was thinking maybe a nice brunch." Nothing too complicated. The old Sarah would have immediately started planning a menu, calculating quantities, making shopping lists. The new Sarah waited. "That sounds lovely," I said finally. "What were you thinking of making?" "Me?" Mom blinked in surprise. "Oh, I thought maybe you could—" "Mom." She caught herself, probably remembering our Christmas standoff. "Right. Well, I could. I mean, how hard could quiche be?" "Not hard at all. I could send you a recipe." "You'd help me?" "Of course I'd help you. I'd love to help you learn to cook. That's completely different from cooking for you." And that, I realized, was the real lesson. I'd never minded helping my family. What I'd minded was being the default solution to every food-related challenge, the automatic assumption that cooking was my responsibility rather than my choice. Helping someone learn was generous. Being expected to do everything was exploitation. The difference was respect for my time, my effort, and my right to say no. Christmas that year, my first Christmas back home since the Great Costa Rica Rebellion, was different. Not perfect, but different. Emma made appetizers and only texted me 3 times for advice. Kyle handled all the bread and rolls. Dad graduated from burger grilling to turkey roasting, with Mom as his sous chef. Various cousins brought sides, some successful and others learning experiences. I made dessert, one dessert. A chocolate tart I actually enjoyed making because I wasn't simultaneously juggling 12 other dishes. The food wasn't as coordinated as it had been during my tenure as head chef. The rolls were a little burnt, the vegetables were slightly overcooked, and someone forgot to make gravy entirely. But you know what? Everyone ate, everyone was fed, everyone survived, and for the first time in years, I was able to sit in the living room after dinner, glass of wine in hand, listening to family stories instead of standing at the sink scrubbing pots. "Thank you," Mom said quietly, settling beside me on the couch while chaos continued around us. "For what?" "For teaching us that we could do this ourselves. You always could. You just chose not to." She was quiet for a moment. "I suppose you're right. It was easier to let you handle everything, but easier for us meant harder for you." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Sometimes that's enough. Marcus found me later, sitting on the back porch watching snow fall in the security light. "Regrets this time?" he asked, settling beside me with 2 cups of coffee. I considered the question. Regrets about standing up for myself? About refusing to be taken for granted? About teaching my family that their convenience didn't trump my well-being? "Just one," I said, echoing my answer from the beach in Costa Rica. "What's that?" I smiled, remembering the terror in Mom's voice when she realized I was serious about skipping Christmas, the panic in the family group chat when their personal chef quit, the scrambling and finger-pointing and ultimate realization that family gatherings required actual effort from everyone, not just the designated food person. I should have filmed their faces when they realized they'd have to cook for themselves. Marcus laughed, and the sound mixed with the winter wind and distant voices from inside the house. My family, learning to take care of themselves and each other. It had taken a nuclear option to teach them respect, but sometimes that's what love requires, the willingness to disappoint people in order to stop disappointing yourself. The best part? Next Christmas, when Mom started planning the menu in October and asking who could bring what, no one even suggested that I should handle everything. They'd learned that family isn't about one person serving everyone else. It's about everyone serving each other. And that lesson was worth every minute I'd spent on that beach in Costa Rica, watching the sunset and finally putting myself first.